This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 12 of the Stable Scoop Radio Show, dealing with hard economic times as an equine business owner.
Welcome to the Stable Scoop, with weekly shows delivered right to you. With Helena and Glenn the Geek, live from the stable, it's every week. They'll bring you the news through hail or high water, while using their tails as their own fly swatters. So sit on down and laugh till you poop, cause it's time again for Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop. The Stable Scoop. Stable Scoop.
I am Glenn the Geek.
And I'm Helena B., and this is the Stable Scoop Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network.
I'll tell you what, Helena, we missed you last week.
Oh, I missed you too.
I know, we were talking about cloning, the subject that you were so looking forward to talking about, and here you had laryngitis and couldn't talk at all.
I know, and you know what? It killed me.
I bet it did. I even mentioned that on the show. I said, I bet you this is just killing Helena, but her husband is so happy.
My family didn't know what to do. I mean, it was like complete silence in this house.
All right. Well, I know we have a lot of guests, more than we've ever had on one show before, so why don't we get right into it?
All right. Today, coming up on today's show, we've got several guests, as Glenn said, and we're going to discuss how the hard economic times have affected the horse industry. And we'll also talk about ways you can strengthen your business despite the economic ups and downs. We have with us, our co-host today is Lori Cerny, and she's from One Horse Press. Welcome, Lori.
Hello there.
Lori is a professional journalist and a marketing professional who's won numerous state and national awards for her writing, photography, graphic design, and advertising in both mainstream media and within the horse industry. So we'll actually let Lori give a little bit more of her background to you herself, because I'm sure to butcher it. So we welcome Lori. She's going to be piping in with Glenn and I on the different subjects as we talk today. We also have Megan Lanzaroni of Team CEO Eventing in Lexington, Kentucky, as well as Todd Branson, who is the Senior Manager of Marketing for the American Quarter Horse Association, the AQHA. And finally, we have Ingrid from a company called, here we go, Equinovation.
Good luck with that. Equinovation, yep.
Yeah, we'll let Ingrid really tell us how to say that one. So lots of guests, lots of stuff to talk about. And Glenn, what do we got?
All right. So, Lori, you wrote a book, and that's one of the main reasons I found you in the research I was doing on how horse businesses survive in hard economic times. And I'll tell you what, I made some calls around yesterday, and there are two big organizations here in the area that do horse rescues, and they're really flooded with horses right now. I actually, in my research for this, discovered that the economic times that they are affecting the horse world more than I thought they would be, because in the past the horse world was a little delayed. Wouldn't you agree with that, Lori?
A little bit insulated, but I'm based here in Michigan, and we actually started to, obviously with our economy and one of the worst.
Well, you have the car companies up there laying off tons of people, right?
Yes, yeah. And so Michigan probably was about 2 years ahead of everybody else, and we started seeing problems in the horse industry well over a year ago. Last year we started seeing people actually let horses go in some of our different state parks, which was very disturbing. And recently our local newspaper, which I do write for, had a large article about, again, the horse rescue groups being flooded. And again, these aren't people, at our lower economic class. These are middle class people who have their homes have been foreclosed, and they've already tried to sell their horses. On any given day, you can buy good papered baby horses for $200 to $300. Some of the different quarter horse sales we've gone to, very disturbing. Horses that have stood in the top 10 at Quarter Horse Congress with foals by their side for $8,000 to $1,000, and plus bred back too.
We were there at Quarter Horse Congress for the auction that one day, where the whole day where they have the auction there, and I was shocked at how low the prices were.
Well, and that's what we've been seeing in Michigan. And we've had a couple significant horse businesses. One of our largest tack shops that was here in southwest Michigan folded several months ago. It was a shock to all of us.
Which one was that?
Horse community. Pardon?
Which one was that?
It was Millbrook.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And trailer, and they had just expanded. It was a phenomenal tack shop. They had always, they were at Congress last year, and again, just tough economic times, and I was certainly glad to hear from you folks, and it was good timing with the book that I've just released, Marketing and Promoting Your Horse Business.
Tell us about the book.
Well, the book really came out of, again, what I've been seeing here in Michigan, and I do teach professional writing and marketing classes as well as journalism, and some of the things that I teach that these business students would go out and apply in the business world, I would look at how maybe some of the different horse businesses weren't applying these things, like customer service, like advertising, like working with the media, and again, with my interest in the horse area and the fact that I write for the local newspaper, although I'm primarily the home section person, anytime a horse story comes along, they pass it my way. And so that's why horse events in our area get covered, because I'm familiar with it. And so many other horse events will go uncovered because it's just hard to get a mainstream media person to come out to a horse event if they know nothing about it. So that's one of the things I talk about and address in the book, is dealing with media, whether you're a horse farm, a tack shop, an event organization, how to make the media comfortable to come out and get that exposure, that public relations, that in times of that we're in right now, everybody wants to cut their advertising budget, which is one of the worst things any marketing person will tell you to do. You've got to keep yourself out there because, there are still new people coming into the industry, and they're not going to know you're located down the street. If you don't have your farm sign out, at the crossroads or what have you, they're not going to know you're there. So,
well, we're talking about people who have to make a decision between buying good hay or bad hay or putting an ad out in the paper. How do you, I'm sure you talk about this in your book, but how do you get the point across to them that it's almost as important, if not as important, to get new business coming in your door as it is to make good buying decisions about the quality of food you're providing for your horses? I mean,
exactly, and there is a fine line between it, but there's so many ways, especially with what we, publicity or public relations, which actually is free. It usually doesn't cost a dime. Do a lot of these things, but again, you have to work with the media, have to be comfortable with that. And as far as advertising, the regional tabs, and a tab, again, like a newspaper type publication for the horse industry, every state has them, every region has those. Their advertising rates are fairly reasonable, and most of them do offer business-sized card ads that run every month. I've seen them, maybe $20 a month. And, you could even do some bartering. I mean, when times are tough, people, that's what people start to do. You could barter, you could trade. Possibly if you're standing a stallion, maybe you contact the publication and offer a free breeding that when people renew their subscription, they would be entered into that drawing. And that publication then, you could work with them. Maybe they would give you a free year of business-sized card advertising and maybe one display ad. There's all sorts of things that people can do to get advertise and not break the bank doing it.
Well, and I think, too, when times are tough, and my wife and I owned a boarding stable for a lot of years, and we went through some tough economic times, too, and I think what people have to do then is you really have to start thinking outside the box. You have to get creative. You can't necessarily do things the way you've always been doing things and expect them to work. They don't work the same way in bad economic times because people are thinking differently.
But a lot of these people, they're running businesses and they know horses. They know horses very well. They know stables and stable management, but they don't know good business practices. And I think Lori has a good point, is there are things like good customer service that can actually bring repeat business in your door. But a lot of these business owners don't understand what good customer service is or how it can be valuable to their business.
Well, and I can give you an example of that. It's one thing I talked about in the chapter in the book dealing with tack shops. And again, it could be applied with a boarding stable, training facility, or what have you. And I think, and again, with my writing that I do for the regular newspaper, for the home section, I try to be really good about not only calling our big box stores that service sources for the story, but also the small mom and pop stores. And I think those stores have had to learn how to compete with the big box stores. So I talk about that when I apply it to the horse industry. Same thing. These big box stores, the reason why they're doing so well is their customer service, their return policies. I have a friend who got into the horse business like 2 years ago, and by mistake she went in a tack shop, bought a pair of paddock style boots instead of Western boots. She didn't know. Went back, and the place absolutely would not return them. She didn't even wear those. She told me, who in turn I then ended up probably not going there because of that. So they gave her customer credit. Now, what was she going to spend that on? She didn't own a horse. She was taking lessons.
And I think that, too, customer service is important after you've got the customer contacting you. And I hope what we try and do today is give the business owners some ideas, and as we go through the program today with the different people we're talking to, give the business owners some ideas of what they can do to get people in the door in the first place. And,
well, and I think Glenn and I, or you and I talked when you initially contacted me about some of the different things boarding stables can do, and you said, I like how you mentioned thinking outside of the box.
Right.
We recently had a very nice boarding stable that we have in the area. They hosted Chris Cox, who's one of the top horse trainer clinicians in the country, and ended up, even in our tough economy, the participation with the horse and riders was actually filled with a waiting list, and I believe they pretty much sold out on spectator tickets. In addition, they ended up having a barbecue, a concert, and then also, and they contacted our local newspaper, which then contacted me to do a story. I already knew Chris Cox was coming, but they actually contacted me about doing a story. One of the boarders has a horse breed, Nakota, which is a fairly rare horse breed. So they were on the ball enough to contact the local media to see if we would do a story on this breed of horse, which we did. They sent me out. I did do the story, and then we included a box in there about Chris Cox coming, the barbecue, the concert, and so forth.
And I think what made a difference there is farms have done clinics forever. How they made it different was adding the barbecue and the concert.
Exactly.
And you used a phrase, they were on the ball enough to do XYZ. How do we get the rest of these small farm owners and these small business owners on the ball? How do we get them up to that level?
Well,
obviously they could go out and buy your book. That's one way.
To open up
they could listen to our show.
They need to open the doors to the non-horse community, because that's where the new people are going to come from. And let's face it, we all that are in the business need every horse owner, every business that we can possibly keep and retain and attract new. Because if the industry, the economy continues to go south, and we lose some of these businesses, we're all going to be affected by it.
Well,
I think there's somebody that let's get Megan on here, because she owns a farm here in Lexington, Kentucky, is a very successful farm owner. The farm is called Team CEO, and it's a successful eventing facility down here. She has 2 locations, actually. And Megan, actually, her maiden name was Megan Moore, and she was 4th in the 2005 USEA Gold Cup Advanced Level standing. So she's a high-level rider, but she also has done very well at creating a successful barn and a community at her facility. And let's get her on to talk about what she does specifically, and it ties right along with what we were just talking about. Hi, Megan. I didn't say your name in your introduction because, is it Lanzarone?
Yes, it's Megan Lanzaran.
Okay, your maiden name was easier.
Yes, it was.
So, Megan, we've been talking a little bit here about what farms can do in downtimes to keep new customers coming in, what they can do to keep the income there to survive the downtime so they're around when things get good again. Tell us a little bit about your farm and what you do and what you have to do to make it work.
Absolutely. We specialize in, we kind of diversify our market, and we provide sales services for eventing, and we also provide training and boarding. And so by doing so, we kind of diversify in 3 different markets. And we tend to make things work by, as far as selling horses, we try to make sure that we sell horses to the adult amateur, to the everyday rider, as well as sell horses on the international market. Like we recently sold a horse to the Belgian Olympic team. So that we're selling horses here as well as abroad, and on the West Coast and the East Coast, to try to cover the broadest range of clientele, so that you're not over centralized to one client who might be struggling in today's market.
Well, and that's true of any business. If 75% of your business is coming from Walmart and then Walmart dumps you, you're in trouble.
Absolutely.
Now, what do you do? We talked a little bit about this yesterday. We owned a boarding stable for a lot of years. You cannot make money boarding horses anymore. You have to do the extras. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Absolutely.
And so the extras that you do, you also do boarding, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that maybe helps cover some of the bills, although with hay prices being what they are, maybe not. So what do you do extra to really help pay the bills and actually make a little money?
We find that our boarders are mostly students as well. So the boarders are also participating in our lesson program. So it's more of a service to them to have boarders rather than an income-producing activity. So it's nice to have that service, and we teach lessons 5 days a week, and then we compete on the weekends. And then we also train event horses and bring them along and develop them. And then we offer horses for sale so that we try to increase income in 4 different categories, and hopefully that together can pay the bills.
Do you also host events as well, horse shows and so forth? Do you rely?
Yeah, absolutely, we do.
Okay.
We host a couple of different schooling shows throughout the year to help bring people into the sport and to help pay for the cross-country course that we have on the farm.
And then one of the things that I talk about in marketing and promoting your horse business, and with the different stables that I've seen that have been successful, and what I talk about with it, fortunately now we're seeing gas prices drop a little bit, is for boarding and training facilities to offer some of the things that horse owners, if they're boarding there, commonly need, like maybe warmer, if you're not providing the warming services, treats, fly spray, so forth. So, I'm not saying, put in a full-fledged tack shop, but some of these basic supplemental things that, you could make a little money on and also help your boarders and your riders and so forth not have to drive 20, 25 miles to the nearest tack shop to buy these things. So, Megan, I don't know if you offer any of those.
Don't necessarily offer some of the tax store items, but I think that that's a brilliant idea. And we definitely offer a lot of the service items like the warmer and that sort of thing, so that especially for our busy customers who have day jobs and yes, life is so busy for all of us these days, so that we can kind of simplify
their lives. You hit it right there. That is the number one with customer service, is that more and more people have 2 people that work in the household, and it is about convenience and making your business more of a one-stop operation for horse owners.
Absolutely.
And Megan, if you had to, you're wonderfully diversified now, so you're covering your bases. But if you had to downsize, for example, because things got really tight and you couldn't afford to operate among the different markets that you reach now, what's your healthiest profit center? Is it training? Is it lessons? What couldn't you let go because your margins are so great there? In terms of what you were offering?
We're most strongly based in the sales of event horses. We bring them along from the very beginning and sell them anywhere from lower level horses to international competitors. So that's really the strongest part of our business and our income.
Which is kind of interesting, considering that the sale price of horses in this particular economic market has really fallen off. Are you saying that sales has remained healthy enough to be a good profit center for you?
We've been really fortunate. Actually, I've sold 3 horses in the last week and a half. Actually,
wow.
We've been really fortunate with that. And just like you said about the diversification, we diversify within our sales market so that we have a lot of adult amateur type horses, but then also we have a lot of international horses, and so we've sold some horses to Europe. Just recently, I sold 2 upper-level horses to the West Coast, so that when you're diversifying and being able to bring those people in from outside your own community market, it tends to be able to catch the eye of people in places where the market is doing better than in your own. And it's really fortunate to be here in Lexington with the horse community, because it's so much easier to get people to fly into kind of the horse capital of the world here and see horses.
Now,
and what you've done is widen your customer base, which is just so smart to do.
Exactly.
During this economic downturn.
So what have you found to be the issues right now? What have you seen as far as the economic downturn? How has it affected your business?
I think that, well, first of all, so many of the expenses are rising while the profits aren't. And just like you touched on earlier, the hay prices and the grain prices are really killing any kind of margin of profit in the boarding. But as far as sales horses, the lower end horses, say horses that are under $10,000, that the most people would be able to buy are the horses that are most difficult to sell right now, because those dollars are very near and dear to our hearts, and those dollars are very tightly held, whereas horses, say, that are selling for $50,000 or $60,000 are still selling pretty strongly in this market.
So it's just like the housing market, basically. The low end, under $150,000 are selling, over $1 million are selling. It's that middle that's not.
Yeah, that's a brilliant analogy.
Okay, and you said that you're actually heading up to Lori's neck of the woods. Aren't you going to Michigan to look at some this coming up?
Absolutely.
And tell me what you told me yesterday about those horses.
Yeah, I'm trying to head up to Michigan and pick up a few horses there, because the horses in the price range that I would be buying horses, the more inexpensive horses, tend to be flooding the market right now, especially in places that are impacted by the economic downturn. Like, for example, if the auto markets start becoming weaker in places like Michigan that rely so heavily on that, we're seeing a lot of lower end horses flooding the market right now in those places.
Isn't that interesting, Lori, that you said that to us earlier in this show, and now we have somebody that's coming up there to take advantage of it?
Yeah, and I actually have two colts that my cousin bred that she couldn't sell. That's why I probably at this age would never have a 2-year-old and a yearling out my pasture now and starting over, but she couldn't sell them, so I have them.
So is what's happening now, Megan, is the prices that were $5,000 on a horse before, are they $1,000 now? Is that what's happening, just to get rid of them?
Absolutely, and people just have to get rid of them, and a lot of those people are the people that are involved in the housing crisis and that sort of thing. And I've had people tell me when they're selling horses, I may lose my house or I may lose my farm. I have to sell the horse before I lose the farm.
Well, and then I just took in a 9-year-old mare that came up from a friend that moved from Michigan to Tennessee, and she can't find hay down there. So, yeah, I'm kind of the refuge for the non-sale or the horses that have no food.
Megan, if you could say one thing to horse owners that have a smaller operation than yours, they have boarding, they do some lessons, they take kids to shows, the operations we're talking about, they're 90% of the market out there in boarding is that right now. What would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think that any of us, and certainly the other two ladies are more of more business experts than I am, but I think any of us are always seeking to raise our profits and lower our costs. And just to do, like right now, we're kind of restructuring our business to try to eliminate some of the frugal costs that we don't necessarily, we're trying to eliminate some of the costs that we don't necessarily need, and cut down on excess spending.
What would be a couple examples of costs that you don't need that may apply to other, horse businesses?
Absolutely. We're sticking a little closer to home with the horse shows, saving a little bit on the mileage on the truck and trailer and a little bit on gas. And we're showing the horses less and training them at home more so that they get more training but maybe less mileage.
Okay. Which isn't such a bad thing, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Doing a little homework.
Well,
that's right.
That helps.
And you know what? But homework is a good word. It's a good phrase, because not only your writing homework, but your business homework. Do your research. Do your market research. Like Lori says, know your local market. Know who you have. Your boarders are.
Yeah.
And it's like an installed customer base. You have this, captive audience in your boarders. Find out what they need. Is it convenience items? Is it do they need to save time? So do your homework. Find out what your market needs, and then go back to the drawing board and figure out ways to deliver that at a low cost.
Exactly.
You know
I
what,
would like
Megan?
to compliment Megan on her website because I did a little researching on there, and I was really pleased to see that, and again, from a business standpoint, that she has done some crucial things when farms and so forth put up websites in maintaining her blog and also her calendar of events. I mean, there's nothing worse than going on a website and there's outdated information. The calendar of events isn't current, and I was really pleased to see you have your calendar of events all the way out to May of 2009. So that was nice to see, to give people a heads up on some of the events that you're going to be doing.
Thank you, and I think those websites are really easy for any boarding barn to do, because there are sites, and even if you can't do them yourselves, I bet you have a teenager somewhere in your barn who is
right.
much better at the internet than any of us.
Or a college student, if you're in your university town, you can contact one of the instructors and see if they can have a student build your website.
Absolutely.
Doesn't cost
and there are a
money.
lot of places that'll do free websites for those.
And you
that'll
can
host
exchange
your
writing
website.
lessons if they feel they need to be paid for it. So anyway, again, like I said, exchanging services.
All right, Megan, we appreciate you being on. I think one of the things you just said right there is all important. And for us geeks out here like Helene and I, what you're really talking about is community. And the one thing I've heard about your barn over there, Megan, and by the way, that is the barn's name is Team CEO. And I believe the website is what? Is it Team?
It's www.teamceoeventing.com.
Okay, teamceoeventing.com. I think one of the things I've heard locally here is that you do have a community. You have built a community, and once you do that at a farm like that, that's the most important thing you can do. And
that's your customer base. Your community becomes your customer base, or the other way around.
And by doing your blog and keeping your website up to date, what you're doing is servicing your community, your local farm, all the people that are involved in your barn. So congratulations on that, and we appreciate you being on. We'll talk again, okay?
Great. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Megan. Good luck good luck this winter. All right. Well, we certainly appreciate Megan joining us, and we're going to go right now. We have another guest that we're excited to have on. It's Todd Branson, who was originally from Indiana, showed quarter horses with his family, and he's been riding since he was practically an infant. I think they threw him up there in his diapers. And he's really involved in the western side of things. He is the senior manager of marketing for the AQHA down in Texas, right?
That's correct.
Yep. And he's going to talk to. What I want to talk to you a little bit about, Todd, is first of all, Quarter Horse Congress just ended. So we're talking about the economy today and how the economy affects the horse industry. What did you see as far as Quarter Horse Congress was concerned?
As far as the Congress is directly concerned, we won't have official numbers for another week or so once we get the official results back from Ohio. But from the word back in Ohio was that the show really wasn't affected that much. People were still shopping in the trade show, and as far as the entries were concerned by class, they seemed pretty comparable to last year.
Well, good. That's a good thing then. Have you gotten any word from your members how the economy might be affecting them?
Well, I think you're going to notice people being affected in different ways from different parts of the country. A prime example is here in Amarillo, Texas, the housing industry hasn't faltered as much as you may notice on either side of the coast. So that affects people as well. People who maybe purchase hay or feed or the type of home they have for horses or the type of horse that they can purchase themselves. And as far as people are concerned, when they have horses, is they're going to make their own adjustments necessary to continue doing the things that they love. One thing that we haven't really noticed much on our end is a default in show exhibitors. One thing that we have seen that we're very excited about is our novice, amateur, and novice youth entries have actually increased this year as compared to last year, which is really exciting for us because I think we're starting to do things that people are really wanting and looking for, and that's finding horse shows closer to home. And we've really started some new initiatives that I'm happy to go deeper into if you'd like me to about what we're trying to do to help make shows more accessible to people, and they can still show with AQHA and do the things that they love.
So you think this increase in participation is partly due to the fact that you're reaching out and you've got these programs that are trying to bring more people into the program?
I think that has a direct effect to it. We're becoming, more and more popular, and AQHA has grown every year. As a matter of fact, at the beginning of this year, we registered our 5 millionth horse. So people are still breeding and still doing. I know it's a lot of horses.
How many members do you have?
We have just under 350,000. I think the latest number I saw was 347,000 members. And, of course, that's only, I think, a percentage of that, 10 to 20% of that actually shows. So a majority of our members still
are backyard horse owners, yeah.
They still own on a recreational basis, and we haven't really noticed the recreational riding going down. And you're always going to have this cyclical type of member where you have people that get really involved, and then if you look at my bio, once I went to Purdue University, I stopped showing. You're always going to have that. You're always going to have families that come in and show and leave and show. But as far as the number of new people that come in, we're still getting new people. We've actually started a new program. It's called Show Up, and basically we're rewarding people as novice to come show with AQHA. And we have it broken down for people who go to their first show. We have milestones for their 5th show, 10th, 15th, and 25th show. And so far this year, we've had 2,600 new people who've never shown AQHA come to a show, and those numbers are through August.
And what about the regional experiences and the different trail rides and stuff? These have seemed to become very popular in the last couple of years. How has that helped to keep the numbers solid for your breed industry?
The regional experience has been extremely popular and successful, and it is one of the most exciting events that I think we have. It takes the horse show down a notch or two, and I don't mean the horse for the competition, I mean the speed. We get to the show, and it's a slower pace, it's more time, there's more help, there's more clinics, and it's a single show offered over a 4 or 5 day period. So you don't have horse shows going in until midnight. You don't have exhibitors staying up all night trying to get their horses ready. And you bring an opportunity for a newer or a novice exhibitor to come experience AQHA at a championship level, which hopefully will fuel their interest to go on to the split combined, the double judge, and the larger scale shows leading up to the Congress. And
so it's kind of as a way for them to get their toes a little bit wet, right, to get a little taste of it.
It is. It really is. And
it sounds more user-friendly, too.
It is very user-friendly, and they've grown every year. Last year, they grew 15%, and we just ended this year, so I don't have numbers yet for this year, but I do know that they're bigger than last year.
With 350,000 members, does that make you the largest association?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
Do you have any advice for small breeders? My cousin, we have quarter horses, and I have 2 of her colts that she didn't sell. And we're here in Michigan, which obviously has been hit hard with economic times. Mm-hmm. And the quarter horses that we've seen go through the sales here, the prices have been very low. Is there any advice you could give to small breeders right now to continue to breed and maybe at least just hold their own right now and, ride out the economic slump?
I think some of the best advice that we can give is advice that's already out there. It's whether you're buying a car, a house, or food, now's the time to be responsible with your money. And we're not financial advisors, and I cannot give professional advice on how to spend your money. But we do have some documents available online right now. One of them is it's a budget guide to showing, and it takes accounts from other people, from other exhibitors. And we basically interviewed the country and said, what do you do to save money? And we've got quotes from them saying, they may share their trailer whenever they go to a show. So you've got 2 or 3 families in one horse trailer.
Like horse pooling.
Horse pooling, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And, different ways to utilize your finances towards finding lesser expensive hay and different things. And it's the brochure is called Accounting for the Arena. And
is this on the website, on the AQHA website? Okay.
Yes, it is.
Great.
If you go to AQHA.com/showing, it's on the main image up there, there's a link that's called Guide to Showing. And that was going to be another thing that I was going to introduce about helping the smaller breeder get into showing again. But in the Guide to Showing, there's the brochure that's called Accounting for the Arena. And we've basically broken down accounting for your home, accounting for the travel, and accounting for the show, and ways that you can find, lesser, how to cut your costs at a horse show, how to cut your costs at home, how to cut your costs. And it's advice from other people, just like the small breeder owners or just like you, that are kind of helping each other save money while doing what they love. And in conjunction with accounting for the arena, we also have an Excel spreadsheet where you can download it and figure the cost for a weekend show. You're always going to have your class fees and your whether you have jump out fees.
It's all those other things you forget about that the show ends up costing you 10 times more than you thought it would.
Right, and the idea behind the Excel spreadsheet is to plan ahead for your show, see what the costs are going to be, put them in the Excel sheet, and before you leave home, you have a good idea of what it's going to cost. And I don't think that there's anything out of line with the cost of showing, because whether you own a classic Corvette, a horse, or a cow, you do have costs associated with your hobby and with your profession. And I think these follow down the same lines.
So actually this could be applied to English showing as well as Western, I would think.
I think so. Yeah. And AQHA isn't just Western showing.
Right.
We do have a complete a la carte list of English classes as well.
What do you see happening here over the next year? If the economy stays slower, what effects do you see to the association and to the members?
I don't necessarily see any direct effects. I mean, I think
prices down?
Do what?
Prices will be down. I think they were down a little bit at the auction we were at Congress. It appeared.
Well, you mean like horse sale?
Yes, horse sale prices. Yep.
I'm not sure. I mean, you're always going to have a beginner type horse, and then you're always going to have a trail riding type of horse or a recreational horse, and then you're going to always have the upper echelon, like you're talking about the 2010. I think you're talking about the FEI finals, aren't you?
Yep.
That type of horse. You always have different types of horses, and I own a classic convertible Beetle at home, and it doesn't cost as much as somebody who owns a classic Corvette. So I mean, it's I think you've got to put those into perspective too. People are going to continue to purchase and do what they love and get what they want out of their passion or their hobby, and some people may make different decisions on what they want to do and how they want to do it, but I think you're going to still see people want to aspire to that next show horse or that next recreational horse or that next race horse.
And then I think what your message is, just try and do it responsibly.
Yes.
Yeah, and I worked at shows on the vendor side, and you see these people come in with 25 different credit cards, and I think those days are going to start. Those days are ending now, I think, or catching up to them now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the best message that we've gotten here today is just be more responsible than you've ever been in the past. Try and think ahead and try and plan a little more than you may. These same people may not have had to download that spreadsheet and plan about the cost because they were never worried about it before.
Right. Right. Well,
and disposable things.
But you're talking about a different demographic there. I mean, the people that we see at Congress and that are definitely not the people that, again, we're seeing here in Michigan, it's the smaller shows that affected. The state quarter horse shows were still pretty solid. The Tom Power show that ran here was still pretty solid, as well as Congress. So you're probably talking about a little different demographic.
Not necessarily. Let me give you an example. We've launched a new program, and you may be aware of it. We have released some of the show approval to open and 4-H shows now, giving people more opportunity and more accessibility to earning AQHA points. So, for example, up in Michigan, if you have an open show that has been going on for the past 100 years, they now have the ability to apply to get AQHA class approval within that show, allowing people to still come show AQHA, but not necessarily need to drive, all the way to Lansing to go to a horse show. They can go to their local show and still earn points in novice. And we're trying to keep it around the core classes.
Some of our open shows, because we have a Western breed circuit here that's probably down to 2 or 3 horses a class, which is been 40 horses before. So it's sad to see that. So this would be an interesting concept.
Sure. So,
but this may be a good opportunity for the smaller local shows to shine again, where they once were the mainstay of a region.
Right.
People can come back to more schooling shows, and as Megan said, training at home and focusing on their hobbies on a smaller scale. And I think those kinds of details can help with the accessibility. You don't have to give up your hobby, but maybe you just have to scale it down and attend more local shows, or even something like, I don't need to get a new saddle. Maybe I'll just get the one I have fixed. Or if I'm going out to buy a horse, instead of buying a $20,000 made horse, maybe I'll go out and spend $3,000 on something and work a little extra to create the value in this horse. I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that it doesn't matter what demographic you're working with, it's more scale.
Right.
If we scale it down, we can make it work.
I got to tell. Go ahead.
AQHA recognizes that within a liquid environment that we currently live in, we need to change to keep up with the trends. We need to change to keep up with the times. And that's why we're offering, more of a brick and mortar overview of what to think about whenever you want to save money and still show your horse, like with the brochure, and how to get shows more accessible to home by allowing people to approve AQHA classes at open shows, and also to bring new people into the show world by entering them into our Show Up program, where they can earn prizes, caps and jackets and barn plaques and saddle pads. I mean, there's different programs that we're trying to put in place to help people still enjoy their hobby and what they're doing, and feel like that they can get their own experience out of it and make that experience a positive one.
Well, and certainly your numbers show that you guys definitely, and I have to say, as somebody that is in the media, your publications, both Quarter Horse Journal is and I belong to American Horse Publication, it is phenomenal. I mean, you guys have done such a good job with having editorial in there in addition to advertisements. And it's nice to see you guys have ads on, we have some of the different events on our network stations like the reining and cutting and so forth, and we see American Quarter Horse ad on there. So you guys have done a really good job to keep your presence out there, and that would definitely equate to why your numbers are still solid.
Well, we appreciate the compliment. We work really hard to provide quality material and editorial in our magazines, and of course, we're proud of our magazines, but we're also proud of the content that we have and the educational tools that we make available to our members, like with the fundamentals of horsemanship and Junior Master Horseman and some of those things. We work really hard at further developing the horse and owner and horse and rider relationship, because that's really what it's about at the end of the day. It's about the horse and the owner and the experience they get with that horse, and that's what we work really hard to do with the American Quarter Horse.
Well, Todd, we certainly appreciate you being on today on such short notice, and we'll be in touch and we'll talk again, I'm sure, as we go through other topics over the next year.
Sure, I do appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Todd.
All right, thank you.
Well, it was certainly nice of Todd to be with us. Sometimes Helena and I, being more English-prone to life because we've been writing English and I've been driving, that we tend to forget about our Western friends, and we're going to do a better job of not forgetting about them in the future. So we're glad Todd could join us. Right now on the phone we have Ingrid Andrews, who is an equine business consultant who has been helping horse business owners with operating and marketing their businesses for over 15 years. She gives seminars. She actually has taught college courses on legal issues. She was an attorney in the past, and she's also the owner of a breeding farm, so she could speak well to this subject because she practices what she preaches. So, hi Ingrid, how are you?
Hi, I'm well. I hope you're doing well too.
Good. Now we at the beginning of the show we're trying to figure out how to say your website name. How do you say it?
I say it Equinovation.
Oh, that sounds better than what we did, Helena.
Yeah, so the short E sound, Equinovation. I like it.
Equinovation. All right, that's good. And it's at equinovation.com, and we'll put all the links from today's show, the link for the AQHA sheets that Todd was talking about. We'll put those in our show notes, so you'll find everything to everybody's websites in our show notes today. Ingrid, tell us, you work with horse businesses all the time. Is it more important that they have a business plan and a plan of some kind in downtimes? Is it more important in downtimes than it is in uptimes? I know it's important all the time. But
absolutely. It's important all the time. And part of that is because the equine businesses are usually running on a tighter margin than a lot of other small businesses are. And when we talk about the importance of business plans and marketing plans, we're looking a lot to statistics and the fact that, according to the Small Business Administration, 90% of small businesses fail within the first 2 years of operation. And I would say that statistic is accurate or maybe even a little bit too optimistic when we're talking about equine businesses. And again, that's because most of them are running on a thin margin. What I mean by that is, pardon?
No, continue. I just had a...
Oh, sorry. What I mean by that is when we talk about margin, we're talking about the revenue that's coming in less the expenses that it takes to run the business, which are the direct costs of operating the business and delivering the products that are bringing in the money. And horse businesses tend to be a little bit tighter in that regard. Your expenses are pretty high. Your profitability can be fairly low relative to other businesses. So when we get into a situation where the economy is down, expenses tend to increase for a variety of reasons, and that means your margin gets tighter, which makes it even more difficult for horse businesses to stay profitable. So it's at these times when the economy is down that we really do need to have more planning going on and greater attention to sticking to a plan, which is, as you said, important all the time.
And what is the number one reason you have found that horse businesses fail?
Well, I would have to say that it's, again, dealing with those narrow margins, because most people who are involved in the horse business are passionate about horses. A lot of times...
And not passionate about business.
Well,
I mean, that's true. That's a general truth. I know it's a general statement, but it's true, and I'm one of them,
Sure, because
we have to think like
doing.
Regular business owners. That's what
absolutely
the point is. Yes.
And because the margins are so narrow, again, it's easy to forgive problems when you love what you're doing, you love the animals, and you see that your business is, maybe not doing as well as you would hope.
Maybe they don't address it as soon as possible, as if you were a mainstream business, right? Okay, that's a very good point. Okay.
Right. It's easier to let things slide than if you were just going to an office and punching a clock and not really enjoying what it is that you're doing. So horse people really need to pay close attention to the business aspects of their business.
And horse people have to wear many hats when they're running a business, and it's not like, we're making such a great living at this that we can hire the right people for the right job. A small farm owner would have a very difficult time having somebody whose focus was just going out and getting new business. So these people have to be marketers, they have to be chief operating officer, CEO, horse trainer, instructor, and that's a lot of information to have, as well as a lot of jobs to hold. So, what do you do? What advice do you have to somebody who it's too much for one person, or in a lot of cases one couple? How do you spread all the projects around effectively?
Well, that's very true, and there's some things that we have to recognize that we're good at and other things that we're not so good at. If you absolutely are not good at something, you do need to get outside help and somehow work that into your budgeting, because if you need a tool to help you operate your business, you have to regard that as a necessary expense, just like paying your utility bills. And if you get to a point where you can't work those kinds of necessary expenses into the business, you need to rethink the business. But a lot of times when we have one-person shows, or we have a couple, or maybe just a partnership trying to operate a business, it can be overwhelming because there's so many hats to wear. And what I think that is one of the greatest tools for people to have is actually to put down in writing what it is that they're trying to accomplish.
And this would be part of a business plan.
Well, sort of. I mean, when we talk about a business plan, there's a lot of different kinds of plans. There's a lot of levels of formality. If you're a business that's had to go out and get investors or had to apply for a business loan or something of that nature, you may already have a formal business plan. But very often, that kind of a plan is not the greatest tool for you to use in the day-to-day operation of your business.
Well, there is a difference, too, between a business plan and a marketing plan.
Well, and that's true, too, and there's differences between the kinds of marketing plans, because you can look at a long-term plan, you can look in the short term, or you can look at what we're dealing with in this economy and this kind of situation is almost more of an emergency plan.
The survival plan.
And how should horse businesses be looking? Which length of plan should they be looking at right now? I mean, I think when we just mentioned business plan, especially if you're not a non-business person, like you said, we're all passionate about horses, and that's why we're in this business. You mentioned that, and it's just like, it's hard enough to get people who are in the business world to do a business plan, let alone a horse person who owns a business.
That is so true.
Well, absolutely. And we don't want to plan ourselves into a circle either. I mean, there's such a thing as paralysis by analysis. And if you get too involved in the planning, then maybe you lose some focus on the doing. But ultimately, most businesses will have a formal business plan, or they should have a formal business plan. That's the kind of thing you take to your bank. And then you should have a marketing plan that gives you over more of a midterm or a long-term view of the kinds of things that you can do to promote your business. And when I talk about marketing, I'm not just talking about what people will often think of as marketing. A lot of people equate marketing with sales or with advertising, and it's really more than that. It's really everything that you do to interact with your customer base.
Exactly, everything from your business cards to your, like I said, public relations and promoting any type of event.
Exactly.
And public relations can be a scary word for people. Public relations can be something as simple as having an open house at your barn. Smiling when you shake someone's hand. And that's another big thing, I think, is simplifying these marketing terms. It's not as far out there or out of reach as a lot of these business owners might think.
Where do horse businesses educate themselves, Ingrid? Can they go to the Chamber of Commerce or their local Chamber of Commerce to get some help, or where would they go? Maybe a college, maybe there's some business students that maybe could help them do a business plan, and maybe it won't even cost them anything to utilize that.
Well, there are some resources that are available to all small businesses as well as to equine business owners. A lot of times you're going to have a harder time finding people with the expertise for equine businesses. I mean, you run into that even when you're looking for tax help, because if you don't have an accountant or a tax professional that's versed in special rules that apply to horse businesses, then you can wind up not making out as well as you should have. So you have to be a little bit choosy about where you go. There's not really a one-stop place to go to get educated in the horse business world. But there are resources, including going to colleges. A lot of them will have an adult community education program, and you'll have some business classes there, as well as very occasionally you'll find some classes that are focusing on the horse industry or on agribusiness. Another thing is SCORE, which is the...
Yeah, I was going to mention that, actually, yeah.
Right. I hope I don't mess up the acronym. I think it's
It's actually I'm at their website now. It's SCORE, SCORE.org. And they actually have, I have to plug this because it's what we do, they have a good series of podcasts on small business success. Online radio shows just like ours is. So I recommend those too, and you can find those right on the homepage at SCORE. But they also have a ton of information and business tools on their website.
Now, Ingrid, you've mentioned that businesses, and we're talking about horse businesses, don't box themselves into a circle. Would that be meaning that they need to stay flexible? I mean, if something changes in their business plan and it doesn't work out, that they just don't continue with that regardless if it's not working out because it's part of the plan?
Well, absolutely, and that's one of the biggest things when you're talking about an action plan versus your formal business plan or whatever. You need something that you're going to work with every day, and that plan needs to stay dynamic. You can't just be stagnant in what you're not the methods that you're practicing and the tools that you're implementing. One of the advantages to having things in writing is that you can, as you think of new things, go back to your written plan, look at what you've got, and really make some comparisons and some analyses of what's working and what isn't. And don't be afraid to use your eraser or scratch out some things and add some new ideas. In fact, what I think,
pencil.
Well, yeah,
kind of, sort of, yeah.
There's not a lot of commitment there.
Age, so.
I love pencil.
All right, guys, I'll tell you what, Ingrid. We're going to have to wrap it up because we're flat running out of time. Ingrid, say again, can you spell for everybody your website?
Sure. The website name is Equinovation. It's EQUINNOVATION.com. And there's some good stuff on the site, and there's also a sign-up for an e-newsletter that I have, the Equine Business Edge, and some useful tidbits to get there.
And they can also contact you if they need help too, right?
Yes, absolutely. I can be contacted through the website. There's several options listed there.
Okay, great. Well, Ingrid, we appreciate you being on, and we'll talk again soon.
All righty. Thank you, Glenn.
All right, what a lineup. This is the most guests we've ever had on in one show, and the technology didn't fail us, which is the amazing thing today.
Yeah.
And I think that we learned a lot, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do, where can they get your book, Lori?
Actually, it's available through iUniverse. Either it can be ordered right online, and there is an ebook version that is available as well. Amazon.com also carries it, Target.com, and there are just a host of other online websites that are carrying it, as well as any local tack shop should be able to order it.
And it's
called Horsin' Around the USA Guide to Marketing and Promoting Your Horse Business.
Correct.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's $12.95, which I think is a great deal.
$12.95. Yes, I worked with the publisher to get the price down. They wanted it to be a little bit higher, and I told them that I felt that I wanted everybody to get a chance to get this book, and the version is actually $6.
Wow.
Well, you do know your market.
And what's your website then, too?
Actually, I currently am redoing my website, but people can actually email me at onehorsepress@AOL.com if they have any questions or if they're having any problems with any type of marketing thing. I would surely be glad to help anybody with anything.
Okay, good. So what do we take out of today? Lori, what do you take out of today, what we learned today?
Well, I think the key is, being diverse, being positive, because there are some good things that are happening. I mean, one of the neatest things I think that has happened is that people are starting to look locally, not only in their everyday lives where they shop, where they do business, but also in the horse industry. So it's a good time for stables, boarding facilities, breeders, instructors, and tack shops to really tap into the local business space. But people need to know about you, so that's where the marketing comes in. That
also tends to happen in general during the Depression. Towns had to stick together more. It actually brings more local communities together rather than just on a national scale.
And I think Megan hit on that, too, about the community in her barn, and that it's not just about somebody coming for a lesson, but it's building that whole base, the showing, the buying and selling of horses, the giving lessons, and the hosting of events.
Helena, what do you take out of today?
I take out of today that we can, as business owners, do our homework. That there are a lot of very cost-effective ways that we can open the door to new business. We've called it creative thinking. We've called it thinking outside of the box, research. I call it doing your homework. It's free. Go log on to the internet, find different ways and different ideas on how you can scale down your costs and still help bring new business in the door. It is so totally possible. It just requires a little extra thought.
I'll tell you what I found, too, in these downtimes, and I've been in in the horse world for a lot of years through up and down times, is you tend exactly what Megan was doing. She was cutting costs, cutting out things she really didn't need. And what she's going to find is that when the economy starts to turn around, she's not going to add those things back in, and she's going to be more profitable at that point. So it's a time to weed out the garbage. I mean, all of us have the garbage in our life that we can afford to weed out, and you think you're going to miss it, and you find out you don't. And I think I think in a way the down economic times actually help you be a better business person. You know, they may seem hard when you're going through them, but when the upturn comes, you're going to be a better business person because you lived through the downtime. And I don't mean to lecture here. That's not my point. I'm just saying that the downtime is the time to learn and to plan and to get through it, because then when the uptime comes back, when the pendulum starts to swing, and it always does, you're going to be ready when others aren't. My lecture's done.
Well, it was a good lecture.
Well, thank you, Lori. Hey, this has been great, Helena. We should have co-hosts on every show. We don't have to do any work.
Oh, I know. I'm just sitting back enjoying the conversation.
I know. This is great. When we don't have co-hosts, we have to think, and we have to talk, and we have to fill all the time. This is just so much better. Lori, will you come back and join us again?
Anytime. We can talk about all sorts of other things. So.
All right, great. Hey, everybody, don't forget that next week we will be back, and next week's show is another fun show for us. It's about equine photography. We have some of the leading photographers in the country, equine photographers. We have one of the photographers actually has done all the Olympics for the last 5, and she's been an equine photographer at the Olympics. So we're going to learn a lot about photography, about how to take a good picture of a horse. Always take pictures of horses. We're going to learn how to take a good picture of a horse. Plus, we'll have some recommendations on what cameras you can buy people for Christmas. What's a good camera, inexpensive or medium-priced camera for taking horse shots. So don't miss next week's show.
How to position your horse for the best possible pictures.
Right.
America's Next Top Horse Model. Ooh, new show idea, Glenn.
New show. Maybe we'll run a little picture contest after that show, too. We'll see who actually listens and applies it. All right, the show notes.
We could give away a gift.
There we go. Well, we should do that next week.
Okay.
So tune in next week's show, all about photography. You can find our show notes at stablescoop.com. And also, you can send us an email at geeks, Geeks, at horseradionetwork.com, or send us a voicemail at 270-803-0025. Thanks again, Lori. And again, the name of Lori's book is really long, Horsing Around, the U.S. Guide to Marketing and Promoting Your Horse Business. She obviously didn't want to put that on a business card. So that's why it's on a book. Because
and we'll put a link to it on our show notes.
That's for sure. We'll put a link right to the Amazon site where they can buy it. So thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you next week, Helena.
You bet. We'll be here with the scoop.